Welcome to the Thompson Entrepreneurial Education Magazine, where we discuss everything to do with education, enterprise, media, and finance. My name is Bello Tongo, founder and CEO of Thompson, and today I have with me Mr. Hassan Musa Usman. He is the founder and MD of New Frontiers Development, a proprietary investment company here in Nigeria, Abuja. He is a very accomplished entrepreneur and a chartered accountant. He has sat in the board, or even currently sitting in the board, of many different companies with so many experiences in banking, oil and gas, transport, investments, and also telecom. Mr. Hassan Musa Usman, good to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Yes. Thanks a lot. Nice to be in your program.
Thank you very much. Generally, I like to always start interviews on a lighter note, basically. But for us at Thompson, we have an audience of educators, students, entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs also. So I want to know first, you being a chartered accountant and a very accomplished entrepreneur, what led you to choose accounting as a degree? And also, what has been the journey of you starting off from school to really deciding to choose accounting? Because I know, mostly in Nigeria, a lot of our choices in career is our parents that decide and all that. But it would be good to know how you came to decide accounting was going to be the path for you, and what has been the projection and the growth through schooling and then professional development.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Actually, I never even intended studying accounting. It just came up over the course of time. Initially, my plan was to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a lawyer.
Right.
And then halfway through school, I decided, well, law is maybe not for me. I want to do something to do with business, to do with the economy. So I changed to economics.
Okay.
And I actually studied economics in university, my first degree. And I went for a master's in economics as well. But halfway through the program, the idea was go and study economics. And then once I'm done with the master's, apply for a job, work for 3, 4, 5 years, save enough money and go and do an MBA. And then take it from there. But halfway through my economics master's, I saw a classmate who was applying to an accounting firm to become a chartered accountant. And we got talking. I said, but I mean, why? What's making you apply for this? And she talked me out of the MBA, basically, saying to me, look, if you go for the MBA, you're saving money for 4 or 5 years, and then you spend to get the MBA. If you apply for a chartered accountancy qualification in one of the big firms, PwC or KPMG or something, they will actually pay you while you're working with them, and they'll pay for your exams as well. And I thought, okay, not a bad idea. So if I can work with a big firm, I'll get a salary as an employee. I'll also have my exams paid for. They'll put me through tuition and so on for the entire 3-year period that you take to become a chartered accountant. So that really was the main argument for me. So I also applied, and I ended up working with a firm called Arthur Andersen, which is now transmuted into KPMG. Arthur Andersen in the UK. It was 1989 that I applied for that. 1990, I started working at Arthur Andersen as a chartered accountant, and 3 years later I qualified. So it's a 3-year program. If you don't have any mishaps along the way. Unfortunately, I did not have any kind of carryover or repeats or something. So within the 3 years, I qualified as a chartered accountant. And that really defined my career path from chartered accountancy. I was working in a chartered accountancy firm, doing regular audits, doing financial accounting functions and so on. It opened up my mind to all kinds of possibilities. We were auditing different companies. Some were banks, some were investment companies. The department in which I worked in Arthur Andersen was called the Financial Markets Division. So it had to do with all kinds of finance here. Could have been an investment bank today, a commercial bank tomorrow that you're auditing, an asset management company, the entire plethora of companies in that universe. And in auditing them, I began to develop a lot more interest in, okay, this is exciting. I like this. I'm enjoying it. And that's when I decided to focus a bit more on finance. Okay. So I qualified as a chartered accountant in 1993, finished in England. And I decided to relocate to Nigeria almost immediately. I got an offer to work with Citibank in Lagos in the corporate finance department. And that's what really defined my career. Corporate finance is something that I'm very passionate about. It's a space that I've grown very, very comfortable with. So it covers the entire thing from investment banking to wealth management to a certain degree, helping companies to raise funding, whether it's debt or equity, restructuring companies and their balance sheets, and that entire universe. And I worked with Citibank for about 7 years in corporate finance, doing exactly that, helping big oil companies raise money to explore for oil and gas in deep offshore and so on, helping manufacturing companies to raise money, just all sorts of companies. I worked there for about 7 years, and then I got an offer to join the government to work with the Bureau of Public Enterprises. BPE at the time was privatizing companies that the government owned, and they were looking for people to come in and to work with them. So I took a 2-year leave of absence from Citibank to come and work in BPE to privatize government companies. And that's when I got exposed to a lot more sectors. I was at BPE I was supposed to be there for 2 years. I ended up spending just over 4 years in BPE. And during that time, working, of course, on investment banking and corporate finance, I ended up having exposure to different sectors. Telecoms, we were the team that tried to privatize Nitel at the time, which was a government-owned company that was the biggest telecoms company in the country at the time. We also worked very closely with NCC to come up with the Communications Act in 2003. Was eventually passed by the National Assembly. I also worked on oil and gas while in BPE. At the time trying to privatize LMA Petrochemical Company, which eventually got privatized and is now owned by Indorama. The port reforms, we pushed that through right up to concessioning of the ports. So all this happened by the time I left BP. I left in 2004, having worked there for about almost 4 years or so, just over 4 years. So from BP, I was asked to come in and work at FCT. FCT at the time had a company called Abuja Property and Investment Company, which is the investment company of FCT. It held FCT shares in different companies, was also charged with the responsibility of doing lots of property investments and so on. I worked there for 2 years as an executive director after leaving BP. By this time, I'd resigned from Citibank because they gave me time off. Initially 2 years, then another 2 years, making 4 years. I could not keep on asking for extensions in good faith, so I had to resign and focus on working here in Abuja. So I worked at Abuja Investment for just over 2 years before being asked to come and become the MD of ASO Savings and Loans, which is a mortgage bank that was at the time owned by the FCT. And the task was to two things. At the time, the minister who appointed me, Madam Nasser Rufai, a man I hold with the highest regards, brilliant gentleman. I was recruited to be MD of ASO Savings, and there was a two-fold task. One was just to oversee the privatization of the company and have private investors come and take it over. And the second part was to have it as a vehicle to enable people buy houses in Abuja. At the time, the governor, President Obasanjo, had decided to sell off government-owned houses. And I think well over 30,000 housing units were sold within a period of about 4 or 5 years or so. Houses that had been built by the federal government. And ASO Savings financed, I would say, well over 2/3 of those mortgages. So over 30,000 people bought houses through the federal government scheme of selling government houses. ASO funded about 22,000 of those 30,000 people. So the bulk of it happened through ASO financing it. So in a sense for me, those two tasks were achieved. We're able to fund people to buy houses. We're also able to privatize the company. The government ended up with a stake of about 20%. I worked in ASO for about 10 years until my tenure was over. And then I jumped into the field of entrepreneurship. But in a sense, I can say that journey on entrepreneurship started even before I formally left ASO, because at the time I got to ASO, it had been operating for a while, but it wasn't doing very well. It wasn't well known beyond FCT. And our job was basically myself and my team was to grow the bank into a formidable entity and to provide mortgages to people across Abuja. So that journey of growth was really an entrepreneurial journey, because there really wasn't a formula or any kind of model for a mortgage bank in Nigeria at the time. We were just basically making up as we went along. And I dare say we did a pretty good job. The bank grew. When I look across the space today in the mortgage sector, quite a few of the MDs and the EDs that are in different mortgage banks today at one time or the other passed through ASO Savings, because we had a very big emphasis on training, learning and development. We did a lot of training for a lot of people, and at the time, something like 70% of the staff that we got on were, new people, almost within a year or two of NYSC. Yeah, so they were fairly fresh. So you had to ensure they were properly trained and so on. We recruited, I would say, well over 200 people that were within that sort of age bracket. So we ended up with a very young workforce, but they were fantastic in terms of, because the people are young, they don't see limits or boundaries. Yeah, because when you're young, you think everything is possible.
Exactly.
So that energy was really instrumental in the growth of the organization, and I think it saw us through the 10 years. I left ASO in 2015, end of 2015, and started up with New Frontier Developments, along with a couple of friends, as a proprietary investment company. And the journey over the last 8 years has been extremely satisfying, extremely fulfilling, because it's truly been an entrepreneurial journey. You don't have, yes, you have a salary per se, but you don't have money coming in on a regular basis, at least initially. Yeah, so you had to try and chart your path. It was very different from what I'd been used to for the first part of my career, where, you go, you have a job and you have a salary, you get paid end of the month and so on. We've made sure here that the employees get paid every month. But initially, for those of us who are quite senior, we had to go months and months without salaries here. And it's a very humbling journey, but it's one that is ultimately very, very satisfying. So we've done a lot over the last 7.5, almost 8 years. And really, for New Frontier, as a proprietary investment company, the focus is on finding idle assets or underutilized assets and trying to see how you can improve upon them and make them grow. So over the years, we've invested. We led a consortium that bought into a mortgage bank owned by one of the top 5 banks in the country, bought the mortgage bank and restructured it. It's now operating very, very well. We've taken over a couple of properties from NNDC, properties that were meant for hotels, and we've turned them around. We're now running hotels in these places. We have bought into a red brick factory in Ekiti State. The government had a factory that was meant to make red bricks, and then for whatever reasons it did not perform very well. It was almost shut down. We bought into the company last year. We're now trying to restructure and to make it grow, and I'm pretty confident that in the next year or two it will become the #1 red brick factory in Nigeria, and from there we can expand and have a lot more. So we've done quite a bit. It's been a very up and down journey, but it's been a very satisfying journey. We're focused on a few sectors. Real estate is one.
Okay.
Agriculture is another. Agriculture and agribusiness. Hospitality is another one. And then advisory services, which we've done in different areas. Going into next year, we want to also get into energy power, but renewable energy. Yeah, that's the plan for next year, so we can, expand a bit. But so far, so good. It's working quite well.
Okay. Actually, as you were speaking, I always, in my mind, I'd already made a mental note to just get rid of my notes here. Questions. Because just out of everything you've said, there are so many points to actually draw questions on.
Yeah.
And I was going to go actually straight into New Frontier also.
Okay.
Because, as you said, since 2015, you set it up.
Yeah.
I myself, I'm seeing that same journey that you've said in terms of setting up a new company.
Yeah.
The first 3 years or so, really not paying yourself, but then you still have employees that you have to pay. And a lot of our audience also are venturing and aspiring to be that, become entrepreneurs. So it would be very good to really know from you, how did you know that you were going to be successful with New Frontiers? That conviction, I keep getting asked a lot by young people, but how did you think to really put everything into Thompson and run with it? Even when things are going up and down, as you said, COVID came, well, some other economic matters that came in last year and then this year also, especially over here in Nigeria. What keeps you going, and how did you know that? I mean, having that conviction to really put everything into it, but also to really push on forward. Good to really know in terms of, how what was that for you like?
I mean, for me, really, I think without sounding immodest, from day one, I was clear in my mind it will succeed. And what gave me that conviction? I'm doing something that I actually feel passionate about. So it's not a job; it's beyond just a job. So I enjoy my job, but I look around the entire country, and I see lots of assets that are underutilized. That could be doing a lot more than they're doing. And in a lot of cases, there may be companies the government set up many years ago that are just lying fallow, or somebody built a factory somewhere and is not doing much with it, or somebody has been able to get some land somehow and is not doing much with it. So for me, from the very beginning, these things that were built or that were created had a purpose, and technology has not rendered them redundant. So I saw a market opportunity, not just myself and my partner, because the two of us that actually set it up. And we're very clear, okay, there's a gap here in the market. There are lots of assets that are around the country that are dead that can be resuscitated. What they were lacking was capital, management resources, and drive. And so from the get-go for us, the vision was we're focusing on this segment of the market, where there are idle assets or underutilized assets, across different areas of the country. And we can revive them and we can make them grow. So that conviction was there, and we're doing something that we actually enjoy doing. So I think you have to have passion for what you're doing. You need to believe this is what I want to do. Also, you have to have the conviction that the path that you've defined for yourself is actually attainable. So it's not about just hoping or wishing. You'd have thought through and figured, okay, this makes sense. And there's a very clear vision. And you have goals that you want to achieve. So you're driving towards that. So I think it helps you. Because if you're passionate about something and you define your vision very clearly and you define what the goals are that you want to achieve, it makes it a bit easier for you to go in a certain direction. And as you go along, you can actually take it off and say, okay, I've created milestones for myself. So am I making progress? But I've given myself 10 milestones and I've ticked off about 4 or 5 already. So I'm on the right path. So even when things are tough or they're difficult, you say, they're difficult, they're tough, but I'm 40% of my journey. Because I've thought through from the get-go, I've planned, and this is where I want to get to, and I'm on that path. Of course, your plan will not necessarily materialize the way you want it to. Things will happen. You have to be adaptable. You have to be able to adjust to new realities. But for as long as you have a very clear vision, and you're passionate about that, and you put together clear goals of what you want to achieve, I think you will make it. So if you were to ask me, what is it? I'll say anybody who is an aspiring entrepreneur needs to have a very clear idea what they're doing. What service or what product or what are you offering to the market? And is there a need for it in the market? And once you define that, then how strongly do you feel about it? Because initially, the bad days will be more than the good days. And without that belief in what you're doing and without the passion to see it through, after a year or two, you pack it up and say, you know what? I'm out. So you have to have that passion. You have to have a clear sense of purpose. You have to have a vision of what you want to achieve. You have to have some kind of milestone that you can, as you go on, you can say, okay, I'm meeting these milestones. And that's what will keep you going through the tough days. Because there will be tough days. Definitely. The stats show that over 80% of new companies don't survive beyond the first 5 years. So, but you have to have the conviction.
Speaking, there's with many of the individuals that go through our trainings, there's something we use called the can-be method or can-be model. So we always tell them that any idea they want to pursue, it has to meet this test, can-be test. So it's CANNB. Do you care about it?
Okay.
Do you have the ability to execute? Does it meet your needs?
Right.
Does it meet the needs of others? And do you have belief in it? So for us, if the idea, the business you want to venture into doesn't meet these 5 things, then there's no reason to actually go into it. Eventually, you may fail, but also when you fail, when things get tough, you will give up. You know? And I want to tie this part now, because as you were talking about passion, very important, but I think ability to be able to do it. So I want to tie this into what you talked about in the first question in terms of you being an accountant. How does your experience and your competence as an accountant, as somebody in finance, banking, and etc., how did it help your venture to entrepreneurship?
Okay.
Because obviously many people talk about entrepreneurship in the sense of making money and all that. So one can kind of see the correlation, but for you, what was the experience like applying all of your accounting skills and financial and banking experiences to New Frontier?
Right. It's been enormous. I can't begin to quantify it, to be honest with you. Why do I say so? My accounting and banking background, those two have given me a sense of structure. Because an organization needs structure in order to thrive. Of course, there's also an argument. Some people would say in the early days of a company that's entrepreneurial in mind, if it has too much structure, it slows it down. It can't expand and take advantage of opportunities quickly enough. But for me, being able to say, okay, there's a structure, even if you're working around the structure a bit, but there's a structure that you can relate to, has been really critical. So when it comes to, for example, we're saying we want to go into a project, we want to go and do something. It's not just simply a question of saying, I have a gut feeling it will work. Or I like it and I think it will work. No, okay. What validates it? There's going to be a thought process behind. We want to go and start, for example, producing red bricks. So just because you love it doesn't mean it's going to be a success. My accounting and my finance background has made me think, okay, in wanting to go and do that, what are the numbers showing you? Is there a market for it? How do you validate that? If there's a market for it, where's the market? Who's going to buy it? At what sort of prices? What do you need to do to make them buy it? And where you're going to go and raise your funding. So by the time you've thought through all that and you put together a business plan, you've covered most of the items that are required in order to progress it. And I found that extremely useful in terms of how we've been operating. Now, if I had started my entrepreneurial journey at the age of maybe 25, I would have had a different mindset. Doesn't mean I would not be successful. Those who are 25 who go and do it like that, they succeed. But at some point along the line, when you succeed as an entrepreneur, you set up an entity. You say, okay, I want to have something which will outlast me. So there has to begin to be a structure, a process, a system that will work so that even when you're not there, you've traveled or you're away or you're taking time off, whatever it is, it's still working. It's not just dependent upon you as an individual. For me, that background in banking, that background in accounting has given me that. So I have an awareness of key man risks, for example. Now, a budding entrepreneur may say, it doesn't really matter at this point, it's okay. Everything depends around one man. When we get to the point where we have to worry about it, we'll worry about it. But for me at this stage in my life, it's a critical thing, it's an important thing. So in coming up with a process, I'm saying we're taking over a factory. We want to do something around it. If we have a structure, we have a system, we have a team, we're not depending on one person. If one person walks out of the door, we can still continue. Because don't forget, we're taking on debt as well. So you're going to go and borrow, and everything is built around one person, and that one person disappears, then you have a very big problem. So the most important part of what I'd say is that my accounting and my banking background have given me a sense of structure. And that structure means whatever you're doing has to be validated somehow before you go and start doing it. You just cannot wake up and say, I like this thing, it will make a profit, let's go and try it. No, there has to be some sort of sense behind it. So that's what I would say. But of course, I speak sometimes with a lot of my friends who say, but you guys you're overthinking, overanalyzing, it's too much English. Just go and get started and get it done. And then you can worry about these problems down the line. But I have a different take on it. And I mean, no one part is outstanding. Both can work.
Yes.
But if I look at some of the most successful local companies, yeah, they all have structure. Yeah? Okay, if you look at the banking sector, in fact, in the banking sector, central bank will not even allow you to operate without a structure. Yeah. So there's an MD and so on, but there has to be a team. There has to be a chief financial officer. There has to be a legal person, compliance person, etc., etc. Central bank will require that as standard. If you look at the largest local conglomerates, it's not a coincidence that the two biggest companies in Nigeria today, local indigenous companies, are Bua and Dangote. They went through a process where they transformed from being one-man entities into things that have structure. Today, Alhaji Aliko can be away from Dangote Group for a month.
Yes.
The system will continue. Even though it's a very big organization, it will keep on running. Same thing with Bua. Alhaji Abdul Samad could be away. It will keep on running. So for anybody who wants to be successful long-term, you can do it by doing as a one-man show initially. But at a certain point in time, if you don't create that structure, it becomes difficult to expand and to grow. Yeah, because everything is limited to your own capacity. And no matter how brilliant you are as a person, your capacity is limited. There are only 24 hours in a day for you. You must sleep, you must eat, you must rest. Yeah, and then you go to work. So how much can you fit in a very large entity? So you need a team that you can work with. You need people who can help you in different areas. You need to be able to delegate, to empower people to do different things. Yeah. So that's what I would say I have gained the most from that banking and accounting background. The fact that there has to be a structure, and that structure has several elements.
Now, speaking of structure, you've mentioned two key things on the financial side, but also on the people side.
Yeah.
And as you know, Thompson is very much into building those people, generate their companies and through education, of course,
Yeah.
the right type of education. In the past few years, as you know, in the economy of Nigeria and generally, the complaint has been about talent leaving the country and all that. To what extent has it been challenging finding the right talent that will fill this structure that you have set for New Frontier,
Yeah.
but also keeping them motivated and achieving the goals that you have set for the organization?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, it is a challenge, without a doubt, but I think it's more pronounced in the IT sector than in other sectors. More pronounced, I think, IT and possibly maybe in the consultancy stroke accounting sector, because those skills are transferable. Yeah. If I'm a qualified chartered accountant, I can wake up tomorrow and move over to Canada or wherever it is and go and work there. So it's a big problem. But I think that the even bigger problem is that we've not created a pool of talent. Yeah? People come out of universities every year. We have over 1 million graduates every year in Nigeria. But graduates in what? Yeah? So people go through a 4-year program in university, but they come out with skills that the market does not need. Yeah? And I mean, so if I come up with maybe a BA in, I don't know, forgive me if people study history, BA in history, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, for example. If you're not willing to adapt and do something else and develop some other skill, finding a job will be difficult. Yeah? So I think we should be emphasizing a lot more on things like project management. Yeah? On things like communication skills. Yeah? On things like vocational skills. Because, today, we say there's a scarcity of talent. But people who are in the oil and gas industry cannot find enough welders. The oil and gas industry requires a lot of welders who can do welding and so on. There aren't qualified welders locally. You have to bring in people from outside and just come in and do the welding work. When Dangote were doing their refineries, they had well over 1,000 Indians at one point in time, doing all kinds of work. Because those guys had the skills that the market wanted. The guys who were local didn't have it. Yeah? Yes, they could have been trained, but at that particular point in time, training would have taken some time. I understand subsequently they created a program where they started training Nigerians to take over these jobs and so on. But I think there's a huge disconnect between what we as a country require in terms of talent and people and skills and what the universities and the polytechnics are producing. Yeah? The polytechnics, if they'd been operating the way they were originally configured to do, they'd have produced these people that have the talents, electrical people, mechanical people, hospitality, accounting, and so on and so forth. But you find that even the polytechnics want to become universities to produce graduates in history, produce graduates in geography, produce graduates in philosophy. They're not bad things, but what does the country require? And the country has to prioritize these things. And so we have a bit of a gap right now where you have a lot of graduates that don't have these skills. It's up to partly the government, but also partly private entities to now have another training program where people can actually learn certain skills post-university. So I graduate as a history graduate, can I go and pick up some skills in photography or in films? And so because films, huge market. I have a friend who's a producer, and again, they have a challenge finding people who will do the cinematography and so on and so forth. And this is a big market in Nigeria, where you find you maybe have to go and finish recording a film or filming outside Nigeria because you don't have the facilities locally. So we need to ask ourselves, what are the skills that we require as a country? And then how do we develop those skills? So people actually finish university or finish from high school, and then they can gain those skills, and they can become relevant. Again, a smaller example, I'm in real estate. I'm sure you've done some things in real estate as well. You're building a house or some building, and you want to do the POP, If you go to a typical construction site, I can bet you that the guy doing the POP is either from Benin Republic or from Togo, not Nigerian. Why should that be the case? You're looking for a qualified plumber, you can't find. A qualified electrician, you can't find. And then we say we have a lot of unemployment. No, we just simply misprioritized everything in this country. And we need to go back and say, okay, for our schools, let's develop a new curriculum. This way the country is headed will require skills that are in industry, in vocational stuff and so on, and let's emphasize them. And let's reward them accordingly as well. You'll be surprised that a welder in the oil and gas industry is earning more than an assistant general manager in the banking industry in Nigeria today. But you can't find welders. So there has to be a program to upgrade skills, to make them skills that are more relevant. Now, of course, part of that is also partly due to individuals, for people to know, okay, I have to personally develop myself in a different way, So I've come out, take ownership of your life, basically. Rather than thinking, I just want to come out, finish university, I have a degree in philosophy, I want to go and work in government. No, let me do something that is concrete. Let me be a film producer, Let me go into Nollywood. Let me even become an entertainment lawyer. It's a particular skill set to be an entertainment lawyer. And very few people have that kind of skill set in Nigeria today. Let me do some vocational stuff. Let me set up a car workshop and I'll employ people that can. So all these things we have to take into account. But for us as a company, it's been a bit of a problem. Fortunately for us, we have taken on board people. We have trained people as well to do things that we want them to do. We've had some attrition. It could have been a lot worse. So we've been able to keep people to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, if you have skills that are transferable and you believe those skills will earn a lot more in a different environment, except you have some maybe personal reason for staying back, you'll most likely move out somewhere where you feel you're more valued. And that's why you see doctors moving out, nurses moving out of the country, because they know that they can quadruple their salaries just by going to go and work in Saudi Arabia or in Qatar or UAE and so on.
And would you say, so for now, based on you've talked about the disconnect between, I guess, the demand and supply of education. So education is supplying what is not being demanded for, or there's some kind of a mismatch. In the past few years, many people have, or even in government, they've always advocated for entrepreneurship, people being self-employed, etc. Would you say the education system should focus more on creating entrepreneurs or better employees? And really, can entrepreneurship be taught? That's I've also been asked that question. Can entrepreneurship be taught, or are you just born with it? And maybe as you're born with it, just becomes harnessed eventually with your experiences.
Right.
So it's a two-part question.
Right.
Should we focus more on creating the type of employees that our industries, our companies are looking for, like the Dangotes and all that? Or should we focus more on creating entrepreneurs for the economy?
For me, it's not even an either or. I think we can do both, and we must do both. Yeah. In a typical environment, there'll be more employees than there are entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Yeah. An entrepreneur may be employing maybe 10, 20 people or something. Yeah. So, but we need to, from a very early level in schools, be challenging our kids to do things that are entrepreneurial in nature. Yeah. So it could be that they play with maybe dummy money. Yeah. In primary school. Yeah. Okay. Who wants to set up a business? Okay. You could be selling even the, what do you call it? Sweets that kids love. Yeah. So okay, you set up. You're selling sweets. You're selling meat pie, whatever it is, and something which is permissible without creating any kind of health hazard.
Yes.
Yeah. So you do that. Kids learn that they can do that. They can buy and sell. They can exchange. They can make some money. And then those who are that way inclined, who have that entrepreneurial spirit, will begin to be on a roller coaster, and they can begin to deepen their entrepreneurial mindset. Those who are looking for jobs will then also begin to say, okay, this is not for me. I'm cut out to get a job. But then from our curriculum in the schools, we can, even for those who want to become employees, we can tailor them to say, you're getting skills in areas where you can actually get a job when you leave school, rather than just leaving them on their own. Yeah, so I think we haven't done enough of that. We need to create programs where we can challenge kids to do entrepreneurial things from primary school right up to secondary and then to university, and then have the curriculum enable people to learn or to develop skills that will be needed by entrepreneurs, by companies, and so on and so forth. So for me, it's not either or. I think we must do both. Yeah, we have to nurture the entrepreneurs amongst us, but also we have to make sure that we're creating enough jobs that the entrepreneurs can then take on and say, okay, I will employ you if you want to be an employee rather than you want to be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important that we do that. We're not doing enough of it.
Yeah.
To your question about are people born with it or not, I think for me, some people have a flair for it. Yeah, but some have to work hard at it to develop it. Yeah. But you can't force someone to be an entrepreneur. But sometimes also nature can make you have to, if you lose your job, there's nothing that you can do. Yeah. Now you realize you have your back against the wall, but you have to earn a living. You don't have to go and steal. So you start thinking creatively, what can I do? Yeah. That can make me, and so you may find somebody who is 40 years old, who never thought of being an entrepreneur his entire life, suddenly realizes, okay, I can actually go and start selling something. Yeah. Some product or some service. Yeah. So I can become an entrepreneur and I can develop it. So I look at it a bit like, would say, football. Yeah, because there are some footballers that are incredibly talented. Yeah, and they have it. And with little training, yeah, they go out on a match day and they perform like crazy. And some are not very talented, but with a lot of training, they can become very good and efficient at what they do. So they will not do some fanciful move for you, but your job as a defender. And you've learned how to be a defender and you do it. So for me, that's entrepreneurship. You can actually learn entrepreneurial skills. Yeah, you can have a mindset that is not necessarily entrepreneurial, but then you know that if you set up a company, you have to find, you mentioned those 5 things, yeah? Yes. You have to have the ability, you have to be able to actually execute. You have to find something which you can sell to somebody. That person has to be willing to buy it off you. So by the time you're thinking through all that, you're thinking, I can do it.
Yeah,
I can do it.
Yes. When you were just mentioning about whether born with it or harnessed or developed, I read the football analogy. I was going to say Ronaldo and Messi, basically.
Yeah, well,
one
yeah.
is naturally, like that one took a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But I think I want to also, whether it's in entrepreneurship, as you said, or even in employment or entrepreneurship, as we call it in Tungsten, leadership is very important, right? And I think you've also practiced leadership, whether in your jobs or in the different board board of companies that you've started,
Yeah.
and maybe even with the engagements with Nasser Rufai and other people in government. So leadership, really. Is there one best approach to it? And for you, in your experience, what have you seen, whether from your own experience or with the best leaders that you have come across? Are there any traits that you see are like the best way of basically achieving effective leadership and management, so to say?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe the top number one or maybe top 3 traits or approaches basically to leadership.
I would say for a leader, you have to have clarity in your vision. Yeah? Because people will follow you because they can see where you're going to. So there's no vision of this is where I'm taking you to, then why would somebody follow you? And it could be for any kind of reason. It could be, I'm not necessarily worried about Nigeria as a country. Yeah, I could have some ulterior motive. I want to make money, but if I follow Bello, I can make money. Yeah, so that is the vision that I see, and it'll make me a follower. And as long as you as a leader can show people this is the goal, this is the vision, yeah, they're willing to follow you because they believe you're on the path. But for me also, leadership is very contextual. So the leadership that will work in today's Nigeria could not have worked in Nigeria 20 years ago, for example, because the country has changed, because technology has happened. It cannot be a top-down approach. Yeah, people will question you because 20 years ago there was no social media.
Yeah,
you could just do things and hide them and nobody would know. Today, you do something, is on Twitter, is on Facebook, is on Instagram, and people will even make up some stories and people will believe and say, oh, by the way, government did this or this person did that and so on and so forth. So because technology has been democratized, yeah, leadership has to change. You have to be a lot more responsive. If you're in a political environment, everything you do, within a minute, the whole world knows about it. Yeah, so you've got to be on your toes at all points in time. We're in a normal, functional environment. But even as a business leader, yeah, there's communication across any kind of company. So whatever you do today, immediately it happens. The entire company knows about it. Yeah, and if they feel that they cannot rely on you or they don't see that direction, people start resigning in huge numbers. Something happened about a week and a half ago or so. This company called what's it called? The guys that do chat GPT AI. OpenAI. Yeah. Where they sacked their CEO. And people believed in his vision.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they basically told the company, you know what? If this guy's out, we're all out as well. Yeah. And suddenly they had to call him back and say, okay, you know what? Let's find a way around this somehow. And similarly, when outside Nigeria, when Elon Musk took over Twitter, he came up with some new rule. Over 1,000 staff left the company.
Yeah.
Because they did not believe in that vision of what is being sold. So I think that leadership has to have vision. People have to believe in your ability to actually get it done. Yeah, you've got to give them some kind of hope that you know what you're doing, that you can take them to that promised land. Otherwise, they will not follow you. Yeah, but beyond that as well, is very, very contextual. What works in a particular context will not work in a different context. And even within your fellow colleagues or employees that work with you, somebody may be brought on board, maybe encouraged or incentivized just simply by you talking to him and reasoning with him. Another person will just simply want to get directed. It's like, this is where we're going, go and do it. The third person will want to have some kind of engagement, carrot and stick before he comes on board. So you have to have the capacity to understand people's nature, yeah, those who are working with you, and what do they respond to most, yeah, and be able to identify that so that when you're talking to people, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, yeah, it's something which is specific to that particular individual. So you have to be able to actually adjust and to adapt, you know. And another example that I'll give you, and we had this discussion in this company, about a year ago or so. we realized that, because initially it was okay, you have to come into work by 9, you leave by 5, and in between you can do whatever you want to, etc. And we thought, but it's not working. There are a lot of very young people who want to work in their own time. Yeah. So rather than basing it upon 9 to 5, why not just base it upon the productivity? Yeah. So I don't care if you come in at 10 or 11, I mean, within certain bounds, but your task is to get X done. So as long as you get it done, we're okay. Yeah. I want the job to come into work, 9 to 5 every day and come in 5 days a week.
Yeah.
We even got to a point where we were thinking maybe we should be working from home like twice a week or something.
Okay.
We didn't quite agree on that because they came back and said, no, let's be coming to the office. People also find some kind of social engagement in being in the office and so on.
Yeah.
But because we're working with a relatively young set of people, we have to reflect upon what actually doesn't even work. Yeah. And how do we assess people's work? It's not simply about turning up every day. So what do you produce at the end of the day? What is the outcome of what you're doing? So I have somebody who's head of business development and she's working from here in the office. I haven't seen her for about 3 days. I know she's out there somewhere, doing whatever she's doing. End of the month, I'll get a report.
Output to the work that's thinking. I have just 2 more questions.
Sure.
Yeah. Normally we try to, in terms of we're working with entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs or students, we always try to emphasize that they should have basically an approach to public development also in everything they do. Meaning they shouldn't just be doing it for their personal interest or for the sake of making profit for the company, but they should also be thinking of the community and basically society as a whole. Some companies do it through CSRs, some companies do it through setting up foundations and etc. Can you talk about that in terms of what you do in New Frontier, and really to what extent is this key in terms of being an entrepreneur and always try to not just make profit and all that, but also looking to connect with the community and do good work, if I can call it that.
No, again, it's very, very important, I mean, so the way I say it, or the way I define it, is that in doing good as a company, it's not simply doing good for the sake of doing good. It's also in the interest of the shareholders to do good. Yeah, because if you're talking about, for example, want to optimize our profits, want to make as much money as possible, that is your guiding light. Yeah. If you're operating in an environment where people are not okay, maybe because they're not, half the time they're ill because of where they live, their working conditions, or whatever, then your productivity is affected. Then you cannot be as optimal as you need to be. Yeah. If you're working in an environment like we're doing in Ekiti, where you have to go and mine the clay from the community, and you don't get along with them, the day they block you, what do? You're crippled. Nigeria has found out from working in the Niger Delta that if the guys who actually have this on their ground are not taken care of, then ultimately it's self-defeating because they won't allow any kind of activity to go on. Yeah. So you can't just simply have parcels of islands of affluence in the midst of people wallowing. Yeah. So for me, it's a very, very important thing. One of the things that we have in this company is one of our prime goals is we want to make money for our investors, but while having a social impact. There has to be a social impact. Yeah. And the two are not necessarily in conflict. They actually align perfectly. Yeah. So we do a lot of agricultural work. So if we're going to go on, we're buying paddy rice from villages. If we don't have very good links with the farmers, if we're not giving them very good prices, they won't really come to us. They'll go elsewhere. Yeah. We're doing a bit of farming in Edo State with a joint venture partner. We know that in that village, we have to have a relationship with people. We have to do certain things to help people. Otherwise, it's not sustainable. But even just simply beyond that, we also have areas where we're not getting any kind of benefit, but we're doing it. So I'll give you an example. About 13, 14 years ago, so I set up a foundation called the Al-Qalam Foundation, which is basically to enable people to get educated, young people who are in secondary school, who are smart, but whose parents cannot afford to see them through school. We give scholarships. Every year we do about 250, 300 of such, yeah? So you find them, you work with the schools, they identify those who have done very well in exams, but who are struggling. They can't pay school fees, they can't afford to pay for their books, whatever. Yeah, and so you put up the money, but you don't give them cash. You go and buy the books for them. You buy the uniforms for them. Yeah, and also you do a program for training teachers. Yeah, because we train a teacher and he has 60 pupils. That impact is a lot more than paying for 10 students to go to school. Because one teacher teaching 60 people over 1 year is a huge impact. Yeah, so that's what we do. So we train teachers, we pay for books, for uniforms for such students. And over the last 14 years, I would say we've done well over 3,500 kids, yeah, in Kaduna, in Jos, and in Maiduguri. And these are areas where we have absolutely no business involvement. Just simply it's a charitable thing that we're doing out of the goodness of our hearts, yeah.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, there's so much around that is, for lack of a better word, depressing, that whatever you can do to help out, I think can make a big difference. And if you even only educate 10 kids, and out of those 10, 2 end up becoming doctors, and 3 end up becoming midwives, and those midwives and the doctors between them, they help kids who are malnourished, yeah, who have all kinds of challenges. Impact is huge. It's huge. And honestly, I would say I say to people who I know can afford to, look, you have to get involved in doing something for the society. We all complain about government, but it's beyond government. Government hasn't got the resources. There has to be an element of communal self-help. Yeah, we come together as a group. We say, let's put money together. Let's fund something. It could be a primary healthcare center. It could be funding people's education. It could be anything. But just do something that helps to address a problem. Yeah. So for me, it's a very, very important thing. It's something which I've held dear for a very, very long time. Even before I started this journey of being a businessman. When I was working in Citibank, the bank had a partnership with a group called Junior Achievement of Nigeria, JAN, J-A-N. And what they do, incidentally, is they put kids on entrepreneurial journeys. Yeah, so they help you through managing money, etc. You have to go out there and you volunteer your time. Yeah. So all of us as staff in Citibank were given the choice to volunteer time to go to different schools in remote areas, teach about money, about business, how you can set up a business, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and I found that very fulfilling. And this was what, in the 1990s, 94, 95, 96. Yeah, but that stayed very, very strong in my mind.
So it means basically you're being directly giving us a green light to when you're in retirement. We should basically come and get you as one of our educators.
Please, not even right now, not a problem at all, you know. If I can add any value in any way possible, I'll be very happy to do so, honestly.
Okay, it's just good to know that you have an educator in you.
Yes.
Even what we're doing right now, you're actually also educated. The audience is watching.
No, we're very happy to.
So I know I said I had 2 questions left only, but there's one.
Yeah.
Let me just speak about work-life balance.
Yeah.
Is it a myth or is it a reality? Because entrepreneurs usually think they can achieve that when they go into entrepreneurship, but they realize that when they go into entrepreneurship, the time is even gone.
Yeah.
It's even worse than when they were employees.
Yeah.
So what would you say about that? How
it's not a myth,
okay.
But it's very easy to lose sight of it. Yeah, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're setting up or starting up, it takes your entire being, and everything that you do is centered around that. Yeah, you're sitting at home on a Saturday afternoon, you should be watching football, resting. You're thinking, oh, by the way, we should have done this, we need to do that, etc., etc. Yeah, you wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning, you're thinking, oh my God, we should do this, we should do that. Yeah, and you're making notes and so on. So it's all encompassing. You cannot be an entrepreneur truly and then say you switch off. Yeah, of course you have to have some sort of limits. You need time to be able to rest. You need time for your family, and what works for people depends upon who that person is, depends on what stage you are in your life. I mean, somebody who's 30 or 35 can afford to go on 4 hours of sleep for, 6 months or something and still have enough energy. Yeah, whereas when you're my age, you have to have at least about 6 hours of sleep. Yeah, otherwise you can't function. Yeah, but you have to have that balance, and it's easy to lose sight of it because you're so engrossed in the work. Yeah, so what I'd say is, as much as possible, try and find time when you can just shut down, even maybe for a day or two or so. The way I've been able to actually have some sort of balance is I walk a lot. Yeah, in a week I'll go out walking for maybe 4 times, at least about 7 kilometers. Yesterday I stretched my luck. I did 14 and a half kilometers. So I was feeling almost dead, but at least 7 kilometers per session. Yeah, 4 times a week. No, 4 times a week. Yeah, I try and do that. Yeah. And I find so that walk could take anything from about 15 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on how many kilometers I end up doing. I go more than 7 sometimes. And in walking, it just gives me space to think, to de-stress. Yeah, so I could be, whether it's playing music or listening to the Quran or some recitation or listening to some podcast by someone about different things. Or listening to a comedy that makes you laugh. I found that extremely helpful. Extremely. So we have to find something that enables you to not only de-stress, but also to burn some energy. Because if you don't do that, ultimately you'll collapse. Yeah, but you work-life balance, the bottom list, you need it. But in the early days as an entrepreneur, you never get it right, no matter how hard you try. Because you can't switch off. Something comes up and needs to be attended to. You cannot say, by the way, it's Saturday, I'm not going to attend to it till Monday. By Monday, the chance is gone.
Yeah.
So
It's like, sometimes it's even just the thought of end of the month, you have stuff to pay, salaries and all that. You're like, final question is in 2 parts so that we don't overshoot the time. What has been your most proudest moment or achievement or project or work that you've done, especially running New Frontiers as an enterprise? And also, what is something you are looking forward to in the near future in terms of work, project, etc.?
My proudest thing, I wouldn't say it's work related.
Okay.
It's just the kids whose lives we're able to impact.
All right.
Yeah, on a year-on-year basis. Every year we do this program, we have an outreach.
Yes.
And we have been able to get a partnership with Chevron.
Okay.
Yeah. So they've helped out a lot as well.
Right.
And just being able to touch people's lives like that for me is extremely impactful. Yeah. And it made me feel very, very proud. As a company, I would say what's been the proudest moment? I think when we bid last year for this factory in Ekiti State. Yeah. I'm not from Ekiti State. I don't know anybody from Ekiti State. They put out an advert. We responded to it. We put a proposal. We went through a process. We bid and we won. We didn't know anybody. We didn't pay a dime. Yeah. That made me very proud. Yeah. The company hasn't grown or started growing the way we wanted to grow. It will happen eventually. But the fact that in Nigeria you can actually go in for something, and on the basis of your competence, on the basis of your submission, you can win. Yeah, in an area where you have no links whatsoever. That for me was it made me very proud. It also humbled me. Yeah, that if we want to, we can actually make this country work. Yeah, but honestly, we didn't pay anybody a dime. We didn't know anybody at all. Yeah, we started engaging with them when we started the process, and we won that bid. And the other guys who were bidding were from around the area, but didn't have the capacity. We didn't know. So that made me very, very proud.
Yeah, it was a major achievement. Major achievement, as you said.
It made me very, very proud.
Yeah. It was, and I think you're looking forward to finally.
Looking forward
to next 5 years, 10 years.
It's actually educational.
Okay.
Yeah. I would want to set up some kind of school that would provide vocational training.
All right.
Yeah. I see a lot of young guys who should be in school, teenagers, who, given the chance, could be electricians, could be plumbers, could be technicians. Yeah, could be all sorts, could be masons and so on.
Yeah.
But they haven't had that opportunity,
Mm.
and they're just hanging around. And having a proper school that can harness such years for me would be a really big thing. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And I'm hoping that in the next maybe 5 years or so,
Yeah.
I can have that school at Kings.
Right.
And then just have a scholarship scheme. So once you get into school, you're not paying fees, or we pay maybe some small amount, but
Okay.
it's a very competitive thing. You apply, you get in there, and you come up with a qualification at the end of the day.
Yes. I think you're speaking to the right person. Whenever you're ready to set that up, we do consulting and all of that. That's our specialty, whether it's on the vocational side, but and this is something that we won't charge you on it, as you know. Yes. Yeah, that's very much. Yeah. So this has been, of course, our very epic, if I can say, as you can see, right from the beginning of the I just got rid of this. I didn't even need this because there was so much that he said in his first question, or in the first response that he had to his question. So this has been very good. I hope it's been valuable to all of you, whether you are students in universities or basic education, whether you are entrepreneurs, also known as employees, whether you are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. Even if you are unemployed, you are in government, you are whatever you are, in Nigeria, also in Africa. I hope this has been very helpful. The focus was on enterprise and business, but we got a whole lot more than that. And we're very much grateful to Mr. Hassan Musa Usman. New Frontiers Development, they are a proprietary investment company here in Nigeria, but also doing so much around the continent. Best way to reach New Frontiers Development is newfrontier.com.ng. Or you can Google New Frontier, it will come up. Or you can also Google Hassan Usman New Frontier. Anyway, you'll find him because he's been a very well accomplished and, as I said, chartered accountant. Has worked with so many different companies and in different organizations. It's been very grateful having you. My name, as always, of course, Bello Tongo, founder, CEO of Tungsten. For the TEEM magazine, that's Tungsten Entrepreneur Education Magazine, interview, first of its kind. You can join us at tungsten.com, that's TONGSTON.com. See you next time.